Hey, good evening, family. Welcome to another episode of the Black Man's Roundtable. I am your co-host, Rodney Butler,
I'm Kevin Evans, the co-moderator.
And I'm
and
Kelton
this
Hill, the candidate. I'm
and this
sorry.
afternoon we have a special guest that's going to be joining us for another one of our uh, candidate candidate series that we are doing throughout this election year. And tonight we have candidate Kelton Hill, who is running for the coveted, I guess I can say coveted, District 2 commissioner seat here in Douglas County. Um, Kevin, before we get started with the questioning, we have quite a few questions tonight, so we're going to get right to it. But before we get started, hey, just let the audience know a little bit about yourself.
So Kelton or Kevin? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Kelton. If I said Kevin, I'm sorry. I meant to say, oh yeah, we might have an issue tonight with Kelton and Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to throw my southern accent out the window tonight, boy.
You just call me K Hill. Again, my name is Kelton Hill. I am a candidate for District 2 Commissioner seat. Um, a little bit about myself is, I've been a resident here in Douglas County for 31 years, a tax-paying resident, not a youth growing up, but a tax-paying resident in Douglas County for the last 31 years. I'm a 37-year law enforcement officer. I've served as a director of safety and security. I've served as a manager of a Homeland Security unit. Married for 34 years, so obviously I don't have a problem with commitment. My job has afforded me the evidence that I have an integrity, commitment, and compassion. So I've served in my 31 years of being here. I've served Douglas County to the best of my ability. I mean, I've served in several different categories or capacities, and including homeowners association president, CEO and president of a youth organization, football and cheerleading organization. I've served in several voluntary components here in Douglas County. I'm currently the scholarship chair for my fraternity. Through that, I've increased our scholarships in the first year from 5 to 20 in 1 year to students in Douglas County. So I've done a lot here in my 31 years here in Douglas County and have a lot of relationships with everybody. And so, that's in the gist of who I am. I have 3 great kids who are, and my entire family are servers. So that's who I am.
All right, great summation. Okay, all right, Kevin. Kelton. Without further ado, man, that's going to be an issue for me. I didn't realize that, but we are going to go ahead on and get into the questioning, and I have the first one, and it is going to be under your background and qualifications. And the first question is, what motivated you to run for the position of county commissioner?
So, it's very easy. I haven't been a resident out here for 31 years. I've seen and kind of monitored the politics of Douglas County. And currently, the state of politics in Douglas County is very concerning, not just to me, but to, I think, all the citizens here in Douglas County. I'm running to create stability and integrity and commitment back to the office of the commissioner. I talked to several people, including business owners, who obviously have some issues with the lack of stability in our politics. Subsequently, we could be losing businesses because people will be somewhat concerned about, operating businesses in a county where the commission office is in such a array. So I decided to run to create stability. And I had fear of losing the peace and economic development that we were having, considering the fact that our commission has been so unstable. I truly believe in fairness, equality, and justice for every citizen here in Douglas County. And so, those things are super, super important to me. And I've been committed to serving my community. And I want to continue to make sure that we have a safe community here in Douglas County, because I know public safety and safety drives economic and community development. So I'm very passionate about safety and security. I'm very passionate about my community as I've been committed to it for the 31 years. And so I get an opportunity now to serve this community in a greater capacity, as opposed to just simply volunteering for things. I can actually make a bigger difference. And I think, having been out here for as long as I have, I think that my record, my integrity, and those who know me know what I'm capable of.
Okay, great. That's the first part of the question on background and qualifications. And before I go to the second question, Um, I just want to make sure our Facebook live stream watchers know that it just jumped on for whatever reason. Um, know that we are tonight talking with candidate Kelton Hill. He is running for the coveted District 2 County Commissioner seat. And we are on the first question so far. The question I just asked him is what motivated him to run for the position of county commissioner. All right, part two of that question, Kelton, is can you briefly outline your relevant experience and qualifications for this role?
Yes, absolutely. Again, just starting out with being here for 31 years, I identify with this community wholeheartedly, having been here as long as I've been here. Again, I'm a 37-year law enforcement officer, and I've managed budgets, I've managed personnel, and I have a understanding of managing government employees. I have a bachelor's degree in organizational securities and management and a master's degree in public administration. So I understand how to manage. I understand how to create policy. I understand those things. I have a plethora of leadership training from my job of 37 years in law enforcement and being a leader in the law enforcement field. I'm able to communicate with other inner city department heads, as well as communicate with anyone and be able to get our mission accomplished. That's one of I think, my fortes. And lastly, my law enforcement career has allowed me to have various levels of experience in managing, again, people, budgets, and resources. So I think those things afford me the qualifications to run for this position.
Okay, great. Kevin, I don't have anything left on that one. I think you got the next question, Kevin.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Mr. Hill. Mine is going to talk about understanding the role.
Okay.
What, in your view, are the primary responsibilities for the county commissioner?
So, in short, I think the primary responsibilities is to be the governing authority for the county government. They're charged with many different obligations dictated by the law. The Board of Commissioners functions in many roles, such as being a policymaker or being a quasi, judicial or executive or legislative member. We manage the county's budget, and we oversee department heads and ensure that the county is operating efficiently. Uh, we advocate for our constituents and represent them. We identify and obtain additional resources for the growth of the county, and we create economic and community development. So each commissioner, should honestly participate actively in making decisions on behalf of the county, and be committed to that, and be obedient in that they could have conversations with people on the other side of the aisle and be respectful, and just represent their constituents to the best of their ability with integrity, commitment, and transparency.
Okay, very good. Excuse me. How familiar are you with the current challenges and opportunities facing our county?
So, I'm very familiar with it. I know obviously the challenge is obviously retaining or bringing back the integrity that the county has lost. I think all of us can agree that's a huge issue, and that obviously can impact businesses and the growth of the county unless we get it get it leveled. But not just that, but just continuing the economic and community development. I know we have one of the problems I think that we have is we have an overflow of industrial businesses here, and a shortage of affordable housing. We lack 25% behind the national average for a county our size in affordable housing. Um, we have a crime problem, not a significant crime problem, but District 2 has a crime problem more so than the other districts. My background is in law enforcement. Background is in organizational securities and management. So I certainly have the thought process, the experience to help with our crime issues and help eradicate the fact that we counted for 72% of the auto larcenies or the larcenies in Douglas County. So I think crime. I think continuing to develop economic and community development, and not only that, just redevelop our assets, because we're especially this is true. We're about to run out of space with buildings, so we have to start thinking about redeveloping. So I think those are some of the issues that we're facing right now.
Okay, I want to piggyback off of something you said earlier, and you
Mm-hmm.
talked about um, overseeing budgets.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big issues that's been swirling around the commission recently is pulling budgets from people. What I thought was good fiscal management. Good fiscal management was being scrutinized as dereliction of duty.
Mm-hmm.
How do you how do you fix that? How do you educate people on that?
So you have to have a strategic budget plan, and that strategic budget plan simply outlines not just what we're anticipating, but the what ifs. And so we have to hold people accountable when we give them funds to ensure that they are doing what they said they're going to do with these funds. And if they're not, then we have to you have to do what we have to do and retract those funds back and reallocate them. So I think that it's important that we have a strategic budget plan to look into what people are doing with the funds that we're giving them, and make sure that they are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So reappropriating budget items or funds. I don't have a problem with that so long as people are doing what they're supposed to be doing with it, or we find a better or more important need for those funds. And that sometimes happens. Things pop up. Things come. Things that become more important than some of our luxuries pop up, and so we have to reallocate funds to things that we need rather than things that we want.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Before we move on to the next question, which I have, Kelton, I'm going to ask you. You talked about the loss of integrity. Um, I want you to specify. So when you say that you want to restore the loss of integrity here in the county, can you be a little bit more specific when to the listeners as what you mean by the loss of the loss of integrity?
Yes, sir. So, talking to business owners, and I've talked to quite a few of them, the concern is that the 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 reputation of our politics is to be questioned because of the accusations. I'm not saying anybody's guilty or innocent. Everybody is entitled to a day in court to prove their innocence. But the perception of the things that have happened here in Douglas County over the last year is concerning. And we all know that perception could be reality to a lot of people. And so, with that being said, people will perceive us as being irresponsible to a certain degree with the things that we've been in the news for the last year or so. And so when I talk to business owners, they're telling me that they're considering leaving the county, and we've lost some growth in the county over the last year. And so they're considering leaving the county because they're lacking trust. And so for me, having been here 31 years and coming from the employment that I came from, with the integrity, with the commitment that I've had to this county, I know being there, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not, things happen, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here. And so with that, I think that creates stability. And I think that's what we need. We need a commission that's going to be in place for a period of time. Right now, we have one commissioner with a year on, and he's our senior commissioner right now with 1 year in service. So I think we need stability, and we need a commission that will be there, and be able to set precedent on what's happening instead of having this roller coaster ride of commissioners over the last year or so.
Okay, and there is a lot of course, as you know, with the what appears to be, like you said, the instability, with the county commission seats. There's a lot of nuance to that. We're not going to go into that tonight, but
Correct. Yes, sir.
of course, can't argue with you. That's for sure. We definitely need stability, but but is the stability that we're lacking right now is very much nuanced, and I hope. But the good thing about it, we have our listeners they are engaged. They kind of know what's going on. So yeah, and with the number of questions that we have for you tonight, we're not going to go deep into that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you clarifying. I appreciate you clarifying that. But I do want to hit on one other thing before we move on. And I'm looking at all these questions. But you talked about the crime rate in the last question that Kevin asked you about. Um, particularly in District 2. Um, I just want to ask you real quick, what do you think is the primary cause for District 2, according to, what you said, the reason that it has the worst crime rates of any of the districts?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. One, District Two likely have more hotels in it, more apartment complexes. We have the industrial trucking areas, so there's a lot of vehicles in our service area. We have the Home Depot, we have uh, Walmart. We have a lot of places where people can break into vehicles, and I think that's one of the critical components. I think the sheriff's office, as well as the police department, is doing a tremendous job with it. But when you're not looking, people are looking. And so I think those are the reasons why we're having, because we have a lot of opportunities for thefts. And so with that, typically when someone breaks in a car, they don't break in one car, they break in multiple vehicles. And so I think that's the primary source of the reasons for the high larceny rates. I mean, everything else is relatively parallel with the districts, but I think that's the one component that stands out, just the high larceny rates to in District Two. And so again, I think the concern is, with the hotels, with the shopping centers, and as well as the apartments and the businesses that are located in District Two, plays a huge role in that particular crime stat.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted you to clear that up a little bit because you listen to some people here in our great county. If you listen to some people, the crime rate is out of control in Douglas County, and we know
Yeah, it's not.
that that
It's
is
not.
that is not that is not the
Not the
case.
case.
Not the case at all.
It's not.
Demographics
Listen,
demographics change, and people want to, start tagging
absolutely,
things. But anyway,
absolutely.
all right. That was only our second question, and we are 12. I got to move. All right. So, Kelton.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the next set of questions, two questions, going to be under community engagement. How do you plan to engage with and represent the diverse interests within our community?
Okay. So obviously, that first part, is to create an online communication forum, which would detail our perspective on county issues. So this online forum will give everybody an opportunity to talk about the issues that are concerning them as well as the county. I would engage them with patience and creativeness. And make sure that the communication is clear and concise. I'll create a media platform explaining the business of the county to those who may not be able to attend a meeting. I won't take anything personal when someone comes to me with something. I'll listen wholeheartedly and won't take it personal. I have town hall meetings, obviously, to talk to my constituents and spend time engaging and consulting with them and reporting back to them. So I know this is a two-part question, so they kind of commingle, but I don't want to run right into the second question. But I will create an inclusive environment by understanding all the cultures of my constituents. That's super important with the diversity in Douglas County. Just giving all the cultures an opportunity to be vocal and express their concerns. I'll make sure that I understand the social economics, and the demographics, particularly in District Two, and give them the opportunity to be represented. And I'll share my contact information with all of them, and make certain that they are able to contact me, not just from an email, but they'll have my number to contact me if there's a concern. Because again, I will represent them and their concerns, so they'll be able to contact me. I right now I don't have a problem attending meetings. My schedule is very flexible, so I will be certainly available to my constituents. And I'll make sure that they're aware of when we have commission meetings so that they can attend them. And we'll record them and we'll make sure that they can go back and review the meeting should they miss them. So I might have ran into the second question.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's okay. It's okay. These
They
the,
kind of tie to each
the
other.
well the questions are actually I designed these questions to actually have that type of flow.
All right.
So yeah, so it's by design. So
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, what steps will you take to ensure transparency and accessibility in your decision making process? Like you said, you went into it a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
now this gives you an
But let's
opportunity
close up.
to be a little bit more specific. So go ahead.
Right, exactly. So, transparency is built through consistent communication. So, I believe in consistently communicating with my constituents to build transparency. Once they get to know my thought process, how I operate, then the transparency uh, it's there. So I think just being consistent will obviously create the transparency. Again, providing the online portal for public use and to gain feedback from the citizens. That's so important, and to make myself available to my constituents. And have a real time performance metrics to gauge what we're doing, what I'm doing, and what you've asked me to do. Have a real time metrics to show that, and certainly encourage the feedback and be open to the feedback from my constituents. I think this all fosters a culture of transparency, and have roundtable conversations like this one that you and Kevin are so gracious to giving all of us the opportunity. So, but having a roundtable conversation, and again, record the broadcast meetings for future viewing. I think all those things really create transparency and make us accessible to our constituents.
All right. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay, Kevin, you got the next one?
Okay, we're going to talk about economic development.
Okay.
What is your vision for promoting economic development within the county?
So that's a great question, Kevin. So I think creating a comprehensive redevelopment plan, because as I mentioned, District 2 is kind of expanding to its maximum with building. If you think about Riverside Parkway, you think about Thornton Road, you think about Fairburn Road, we're about to run out of space in District 2. And so they're going to start moving over to other districts if there's space available. So, my vision is to create a comprehensive redevelopment plan in addition to a development plan if we still have space available. And that comprehensive redevelopment plan would be for distressed areas and businesses and would include a consultant analysis of the economic conditions and trends and public outreach efforts and stakeholders meetings so we can make sure we get it right. So all of those things will be inclusive in that comprehensive redevelopment plan. And my vision also is to improve not only the business climate and the job growth of the county, but also a quality of life. I think those things are really important. So, and to balance the growth in the development around local values of natural resources preservation and sustainability. I think, obviously we have to do that. And we would also encourage investment in Douglas County, specifically District 2, with possibly increasing maybe our local incentive policies. Um, and to increase our tax base by increasing our affordable housing. As I mentioned, we're 25% behind a county the size of ours. So, in terms of affordable housing. And I will review the exclusionary zoning ordinances and review the means for relaxing some of the zoning laws, which can lower our housing prices and create a larger tax base, which in turn increases social stability and enable all of our members to experience a better standard of living. And lastly, I think we can overcome the negative conditions that District 2 currently have. And we all know about the industrial sites. We all know about some of our properties that are now become obsolete because they're vacant. So I think redevelopment can certainly take place and help us overcome those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, how do you plan to attract and retain businesses while balancing environmental environmental concerns?
So, with respect to attracting businesses and balancing environmental concerns, we often reference economic development. However, District 2 is nearing its max, as I mentioned, when it comes to development. So, therefore, we must really, again, consider redevelopment, and particularly in an environmental perspective, from an environmental perspective. My vision, again, is to create that comprehensive redevelopment plan in the distressed areas and businesses and maximize our local incentive policies to encourage investment in District 2, which includes but not limited to a faster permitting process, uh, and provisions for assistance with zoning, uh, and even adopt a designation for our future land use maps so that people can understand, what we have in place, what we can do, just understand what our capabilities are. And so, yes, reviewing the policies and processes for small business to make sure we simplify them. Right now, it's more difficult to get a business license in Douglas County as opposed to Douglasville. So we want to try to simplify that process for businesses, small businesses in Douglas County, especially on our side of the block. And so to make it certainly easier, we certainly want to educate small business owners in assessing capital, which can create jobs and such as the early stages of innovation funds or other grants that can create capital for small businesses and subsequently create jobs. We can attract and retain businesses with concerns for environments by focusing on redevelopment again. I keep going back to that because I think we're approaching that point. Particular places like Arbor Place Mall. You guys remember when Arbor Place Mall was first constructed?
Yep,
We had law enforcement officers all over the place. It was a very safe place for us to
it
go. And
was.
subsequently, people shopped and people ate there and things of that nature. So we have to get that back. I'm not sure why the deputies are no longer at the malls, but I will certainly reach out once I'm elected to make sure that we resecure that mall and resecure all of our business areas so people feel very, very safe about going there. Because again, public safety drives economic and community development. Without it, you won't have it. So,
Exactly.
and lastly, I think we should participate. We should keep our partnership with the Douglas County Chamber of Commerce in educating our businesses and educating our consumers and selling our community. So I certainly plan to take advantage of the partnership with the Chamber of Commerce in selling our community.
Thank you, sir.
All right. The next category we're going into is budget and fiscal responsibility, which is one of my favorite categories, especially when we're talking about the county commission, um, because the county commission deals with millions of dollars um, quite often. So, and and of course, the county commission is the gatekeepers for for our taxpayer dollars. First question under budget and fiscal responsibility: how do you propose managing the county budget effectively, particularly in times of economic uncertainty?
So my vision is to implement a strategic budget plan, as I spoke about, which is a process of combining budgets with strategic planning and aligning our financial resources, with its long-term objectives. So, my strategic plan, will certainly align all of our objectives together. So it focuses on allocating resources effectively and prioritizing investments and ensuring financial stability uh, while pursuing growth and innovation. So a strategic budget plan will certainly align everything together to ensure that we are maximizing our dollars and maximizing our process of spending the taxpayers' money. I propose formulating governmental interests in better understanding our priorities, figuring out how resources can be reallocated, uh, and which areas that needs to be reevaluated when giving out these funds to ensure that we're maximizing our dollars and ensure that we are not wasting resources with organizations that are not maximizing their efforts with the resources. So I'll certainly be a steward of our dollars and make sure that we're not wasting revenue in places that we shouldn't. I mean, you think about just looking at department heads and asking them to be efficient with their spending and make sure that they're maximizing their spending, not maximizing their spending, but maximizing their oversight of their spending, and just managing their business to the best of their ability, so that we can maybe save resources and save fundings. But I think the strategic business plan is what I would implement.
Okay. Part two of budget and fiscal responsibility. Are there specific areas where you see opportunities for cost savings or increased efficiency?
Absolutely. So, annually assess each department for efficiency, as I mentioned. I think it's important that we conduct assessments annually for each department to make sure that they're operating efficiently and sufficiently. And so, with that, you meet with department heads to determine what waste they potentially may have. Department heads sometimes don't like to talk about waste, but there is always waste in every department. So we can look at assessing each department for efficiency. We can review purchasing practices by negotiating and rebidding on contracts, conduct audits of routine purchases, and eliminating non-essential contracts. However, the most efficient improvement with purchasing practices is to strictly adhere to the policies that we set out. Don't veer from your policies. Stay on point with the policies that you initially prescribed. Unless there's some significant changes, because oftentimes when you veer from that, you create issues. But I think asset management strategies such as extending the life of assets, deferring maintenance, and postponing projects obviously can provide some savings. So we have to look at that as well as sharing resources and collaboration, increased collaboration, and that's the use of equipment or working in conjunction with other governments, so we can cut costs and generate savings. And lastly, revenue enhancement, which we can apply for federal aid or state aid whenever whatever's available, particularly with you know the petition, the particular platform that we're dealing with. So we can seek funding, we can have oversight with our departments. We can share resources and work in collaboration with the city of Douglasville or other agencies to cut down on some of the costs and maximize the work and work efficiently. And we can manage our assets a little bit better and take care of them and use them a little bit longer than we normally would use them. So, and just look at our purchasing practices again and make sure that we're maximizing our purchase practices and look at renegotiating contracts. So, I think all those things really could help us save costs.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you to, play Monday morning quarterback, but from the outside looking in, okay. I know your goal is to get on the inside, but right now
Right.
we're outside, and from the outside looking in, are there any specific areas where you see right now an opportunity that hey, this department or this area of the county budget that or let me rephrase that question for you, Kelton. Um, of course, you follow what's happening in the county. You
Correct.
know what's going on. And as you look and see what's going on again from an outside person perspective, um, what give me just one specific area or one specific department that on day one you would go in um, with the notion that there might be some areas just from you paying attention to, like you have over the past 30 plus years, that you would really focus on as a new commissioner.
That's really difficult to say primarily because, we can only see so much,
Right.
honestly. And the things that we do see are the components of government that are viewable, such as law enforcement, such as, our water department, our, power department, things of that nature. So, I mean, I think it's hard to say specifically what I would look at immediately, but certainly
Well, you know what,
one thing
Milton?
that
I
I,
mean, you know what, Kelton? Let me ask you this then.
okay.
Is there an area just again based on just your observation, being a
Hmm.
very
Hmm.
astute citizen of Douglas
Hmm.
County? Is
Hmm.
there a particular area that concerns you, when it come down to budget and fiscal responsibility? I mean, if there's not, there's not. I just,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I just want to hit
Yes.
that specific because the question says, are there specific? And I want to, see if we can get a little bit specific, maybe.
So, um, Rodney, to be honest with you, from this perspective,
Uh-huh.
it's hard to say specifically. I mean,
Okay.
I've interfaced with multiple components of Douglas County government,
Okay.
and it's kind of hard to say where there's where efficient they're not being efficient. I mean, I think about honestly, I think about the code enforcement. I mean, that's one of the things that I certainly will look at and either make sure they either have the resources, have the proper resources, and if they do have the proper resources, look at why we're seeing so many violations around our county. If they do have the resources, so that's one department that I probably would look at to make sure we can be more efficient or to see if we are being as efficient as we possibly can, just to ensure that we're protecting the integrity of our county. And so they have a large role in protecting the integrity of our county. So that's probably one place that I would take a look at immediately.
Okay.
And law enforcement as well. I mean, I say that while I'm very appreciative and supportive of our sheriff's office, I want to make sure that them and our emergency management offices are operating adequately and efficiently because we know crime is right around the corner. And the last thing we would want is to be embarrassed for a lack of properly responding to a situation. So those places, I mean, obviously, knowing law enforcement and having a background in emergency management, I certainly would probably look at those two components as well, just to make sure that we're maximizing or we're being efficient with our dollars and with our training and making sure that we're properly prepared to protect the citizens here in Douglas County.
I want to jump in
Okay,
here. Yes, sir, Rodney.
and real quick, Kevin, and that's exactly, I, of course, I didn't want to, try to
Right,
moderate you one
right.
way or the other,
Yeah.
but when candidates get on and they have, this background like you have in law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
then I think that, and I appreciate what you said on code enforcement as well, which is, a part of kind of, code enforcement, law
Law
enforcement kind of
enforcement.
work together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so
Yes,
I'm
sir.
glad you actually spoke on those two. And I know Kevin looked like Kevin may have something else, but yeah. So my question asked about specific areas, and I'm glad that you was able to come back. You were able to come back and use your extensive background in law enforcement, because I don't really care whether you was going to whether you say that you think that the law enforcement or the sheriff office or code enforcement is doing a great job, or
Mm-hmm.
or you're concerned about whatever it is that they're
Mm-hmm.
doing. But
Right.
anyway, I appreciate you getting a little bit more specific, because that's what the
Yes,
questions
sir.
ask, and we try to
Mm-hmm.
we know what our listeners want to hear, and so we
Right.
try to make sure you go you cover what they want to hear. All right, Kevin, I think you had something, Kevin.
Hey, real quick. Um, I think when you talk about being specific, you look at fourth quarter sandbagging. Big
Mm-hmm.
big checks are usually written in the fourth quarter because they sandbag all year long. They
Mm-hmm.
save that little bit of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you look at that, that might be money they didn't need or they,
Right.
or they did need.
Correct.
So I'm just thinking, for you being a fiscal expert, fourth quarter sandbagging happens in everybody. When I was in the Navy, we did it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody saves your money to the very end,
Mm-hmm.
and then buy big ticket items so we can get that money back at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's superfluous stuff, we
Right.
just spend the money up.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And again, going back and talking to department heads and analyzing and assessing their expenditures and what they need and when they're spending it, certainly could prevent the fourth quarter sandbagging, or at least make them aware that we're monitoring it. So,
Right.
and that's the objective with monitoring department heads and their expenses and their expenditures, and have an annual monitoring. So I think those things will certainly prevent that from happening. And you're absolutely
Gotcha.
right, Kevin.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead on and because I can talk about budget and fiscal responsibility all night, so I better move on. We're 28 minutes in, Kevin. I tell you,
Okay.
Kevin, you got the next
Hey,
one. Go
bro.
ahead.
Okay. Environmental stewardship.
Mhm.
What initiatives do you support for environmental stability, sustainability, and conservation within the county?
It's a good question, Kevin. So, I would promote smart growth development and be efficient with use of the land resources that we have. I would encourage private enterprises to work with the Development Authority on financing mechanisms to redevelop neglected, abandoned, distressed, or scarred properties. And I think increasing traffic to stabilize the business climate around our businesses would be certainly a plus. And then work with the state to improve community infrastructures and the environmental stability. Lastly, working with the Development Authority to market opportunities to increase economic development and promote employment opportunities for our citizens in Douglas County. So, I think all those things are sustainable to our environment.
Gotcha. Okay, second part of that. How will you balance economic development with environmental concerns?
So, balancing the relationship between humanity and the environment, is complicated. I mean, to say the least. We wrestle with this every day. The whole country, the world does. So, but it requires a balancing between economic development and environmental sustainability. I think achieving this balance requires a multifaceted approach that includes policy changes, sustainable practices, educating our community, and reconnection to our natural resources. I think through policy changes, we certainly can implement regulations and incentives that prioritize environmental sustainability, such as incentives for renewable energy, development, and regulations to reduce, pollution, and protect our natural resources and our habitat. And lastly, raising awareness. That is again educating our community about the importance of environmental sustainability and the consequences of our actions should we not. So those are the things that I think will balance it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next we have crisis management.
Okay.
So our next category is crisis management. First part, how would you handle a crisis situation affecting the county, such as natural disaster or public health emergency?
So, again, having been in Homeland Security, this is kind of something that I've participated in, in my career, and being the director of safety and security, it's something that I've kind of participated in. So, obviously, being a commissioner and we're experiencing one of these components, I would immediately, upon hearing this, establish a direct line of communication with on-scene staff, and I would respond to that location, uh, to the incident, particularly if it's in District 2. Ensure that our state and federal partners are en route. Additionally, I would ensure that our emergency operations center is activated, and which consists of, being staffed by department heads, by members of our sheriff's office, as well as members of the police department and personnel, and again our state and federal partners. And the center would ensure that operations are going effectively and efficiently, and there's a chain of command and a unified command with the decisions that we would be making relative to that emergency. I would also make sure that we have a public information officer or myself who would certainly speak to the media and keep our constituents updated as to what's going on and the progress to what's going on with the situation. So uh, that's how I would handle it. And without going into the second question, that's how I would handle the immediate response to an emergency. Just making sure that we have all resources available to mitigate the emergency, whether it's a natural disaster or a health crisis.
Okay. Part two, what measures do you believe are necessary to enhance the county's preparedness for emergencies?
Okay, being in this field kind of afforded me the opportunity to, to meet our emergency management director and have conversations with them. Mr. Mulholland is a plethora of knowledge when it comes to this. We're very fortunate to have him. And unfortunately, he's going to be retiring in May. So we certainly got to find somebody to fill his shoes. And I think he has an understudy, but we certainly got to find somebody to fill his shoes. And in this field, experience is the best teacher. Books can tell you a lot, but experience really is the best component to being able to mitigate situations like this. And so we're going to lose him, and I'm hating that. But having said that, I think we got to have our emergency ops plan has to consistently be updated so that we're not guessing when something happens. We're following a plan, and if that plan's been properly prepared, then you follow that plan, and you typically, or more than likely, you will have a good outcome, the best outcome possible. So we have to make sure that that plan is updated, and our emergency ops center is updated with the latest technology. As right now, they're currently updating their audio and their video equipment in the emergency center, but sadly enough, it's taken quite a while to get these components updated. So some of the stuff may be obsolete already. So that's something that I certainly, going back to your previous question, will look into. Just making sure that, again, I did speak about that, but making sure that we are prepared when it comes to emergency management with making sure they have all the necessary resources to properly respond. But I would ensure that emergency support, department heads, et cetera, uh, you know, uh, department heads and other components of our county government are properly trained with the National Incident Management System, so that they know what their responsibilities are, whether it's, because they're now a part of our team when it comes to dealing with an emergency. And I will conduct annual tabletops and trainings with the Douglas County Public Health and the State Regional Healthcare Coalition and all the related response team members, so that we understand how to respond to a natural disaster or a health crisis. And we know what each one's responsibilities are. And with the influx of trucking industries here in Douglas County, and traveling through I-20 and Riverside Parkway and so forth, I would make sure that the Douglas County Fire Department consistently and annually train on hazmat retention, so that they're properly and ready to prepare for any hazmat situation. I know we've had some in the past, and they've done a tremendous job. And our sewer and water department works along with the fire department when it comes to that. And we're fortunate to have a pretty good water and sewer department who understands what they need to do in situations like that, as well as our fire department. So just make sure that they have consistent and annual training together, as well as all of our partners through tabletops and through training, to make sure that we are ready to respond to any emergency that may occur in Douglas County. You know, and so those are some of the things that I certainly would do, but to make sure that we're properly prepared.
I think one of the things that concerns me is having a streamlined process for decision making, because we don't want another snowmageddon.
Exactly.
We don't want the floods in our style.
Right.
COVID kind of hit us in the head when we wasn't looking, but we got to be ready.
Right.
We can't afford to have those things happen.
Right. And to that point, Kevin, having a relationship with the Department of Homeland Security and Homeland, the entire purpose of Homeland was to share information. The entire purpose of our state emergency management department, as well as our feds, is to share that information. We certainly must listen, because oftentimes we don't listen, and we don't want to inconvenience people. But we have to listen. We have to get the message out. We have to have a good information system, good means to share that information. And again, we have to create the trust of our constituents so they believe us when we tell them something, and they properly respond. So that's a great point. Thank you.
All right, before we move on to our last question, our last set of questions, you may have talked about it, Kelton, but I may have missed it a little bit. And that is working with our, again, talking about crisis management, working with our surrounding counties and our surrounding cities. You may have spoke on that in your first, in the first part of that question, but if can you go over that again if you spoke on it already about working with the surrounding areas, and if you have experience already working with the surrounding areas, and do you already know some people, for instance, in our surrounding counties? But talk about that a little bit before we move on, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So your buffer zone is your communities that surround you. Obviously, what impacts South Cobb certainly may impact us. What impacts Carroll County or Villa Rica certainly will impact us. What impacts South Fulton could potentially impact us. So it's important that we have a working relationship. We know their department heads. We know the people that make decisions there. When you create a joint operations center or a emergency management center, you put these components in one room. And to Kevin's point, you make sure that the decision that is being made is a unified decision among those who make the decision, so that we're making the best decision available. So I think that having relationships with these particular agencies, and I do know components within all of these agencies, and have working relationships with them, that it makes it a lot simpler once I'm a commissioner to reach out to them and say, hey, what do you got going on? Or we need this, or can you share this with us, or share whatever with us. So that's something that I think I bring to this table that none of my opponents.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to get to, is that we know it's a Q&A, but as moderators, part of our job is to help you talk to our listeners, to help you talk to the constituents, and being in law enforcement, as long as you've been in law enforcement, I just had a gut feeling that this guy know people, and let them know you know people. So we'll yeah.
Yeah, right. And that's really important. I'm telling you, because oftentimes people don't want your problems. They'll run away from your problems. But if you have working relationships with people, then they'll be more afforded to help you, or to at least provide some of their expertise to assist you in situations. Douglas County, we're a growing county. I think about 31 years ago, what the sheriff department looked like 31 years ago, how responsive they were to things 31 years ago. It's vastly different today. And I think, I've worked directly alongside them, mitigating crime here in Douglas from Atlanta. So I know what their capabilities are. I know what their intellect is. I know what their response is. I've seen it firsthand. Uh, there's always room for improvement. And so having working relationships certainly benefits us. And by me getting in that position, we inherently have these working relationships. I know Sheriff Pounds and his team and Chief Sparks and their team have some relationships as well. But I will be a component or a plus to them when it comes to this. Now, I won't be a commissioner specifically to work emergency management, but I trust me when I tell you emergency management will not be an issue for this county if I am commissioner, because that's one of my babies. And we will certainly be prepared to deal with any emergency that we have. And, again, look at, McEachern, look at Mays High School, look at all those things that just happened. And people, again, to Kevin's point, we Monday morning stuff. And what we talk about, what we should have did, and so, you know, I'm very, very passionate about, this community. I'm very passionate about law enforcement. I'm very passionate about helping people. So being a commissioner certainly will afford me the opportunity to do all of those things. And I assure you, I'll be on the job, particularly when it comes to safety and security or protecting this county in any way, physically as well as security wise.
Well, Kelton, that's one of the reasons I wanted to, hone in on this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our commissioners, commissioners everywhere, I would hope,
Mm-hmm.
bring, you know, a plethora of knowledge and background to the board of commissioners. But
Right.
look, the bottom line is, people have their specific backgrounds,
Right.
and so I had the question of crisis management, and I just wanted to make sure that you really hone in on that.
Yes, sir.
Because not to say that you don't know all this other stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
but to let the constituents know, to let the people know that, hey, this is one area that if something happens in Douglas County, you know, we
We're
are a
good.
corridor, man, between a lot of
That's right.
stuff in Douglas
That's
County,
right. That's right.
but also, natural stuff, natural disasters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
To let the people know that, hey, like you just did, that so don't, talk about your area of expertise. I did not want to move away from crisis management without you honing down on that. You know what I'm saying?
And
So, but
absolutely,
anyway, great
and right,
job.
and right. I appreciate that, Rodney. I mean, that's really important. I appreciate you and Kevin because you guys are doing a great job, and I know you're doing this great a job with the other candidates, but I'm certainly appreciative of what you're doing with me, and I mean, it's a great job.
Oh,
I really
absolutely,
appreciate
man. We want the people to, we'll talk about it at the end. But
it.
Kevin, you got this the last one. Kevin, you got the last
Close
one.
it out. Okay.
Yep.
Input and decision making.
Okay.
How will you seek input from the community when making important decisions?
Okay. Well, seeking input, obviously, by being transparent, which again is built through consistent communication. I think listening actively and paying attention to your constituents is really critical uh, to receiving their input. I think providing an online portal, uh, for public use and to get feedback from it is critical. So they'll be able to communicate directly with me through this online portal to tell us what's going on, what they're thinking, because I don't know it all. The commissioners don't know it all. We're not seeing it all. These people are out there. They can call us and tell us, or go on that online portal and tell us what's going on, and we'll be receptive to that. Gain feedback from the citizens through town hall meetings. I certainly will be having town hall meetings and gaining feedback and taking that to the board of commissioners in hopes that we can address their concerns or their issues, and make sure our constituents are aware of commission meetings and encourage them to attend them, and explain the government's business to them. It makes myself available again to my constituents and have a real-time performance metric that will measure what we're doing so that they can see what we're doing, what we're not doing. So that real-time performance metrics will obviously uh, allow that. And I would encourage feedback and to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. That's really important. And be open to any feedback from the constituents. Again, I don't know it all. I'm not going to proclaim to know it all. And I'm sure our commissioners don't know it all. So be open to that. Don't be offended when someone tells you something or someone is passionate about something. And have clear plans for meetings and keeping them on track so that, again, everybody gets an opportunity to speak. So those are some of the things I think that aids us in making allowing the constituents to help us make important decisions.
Okay, last part.
Okay.
Excuse me. In what ways will you ensure that diverse voices are heard and considered?
Okay, again, that's a great question. Again, I mean, so to include diverse voices in discussions, I would actively seek input from various team members of our community and promote an inclusive environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing their thoughts and their perspective. So, just be inclusive and allow everyone to share their thoughts and their perspective. Encourage open dialogue and consider different viewpoints before making decisions. I think is critical. And identifying community leaders and ensuring dialogue is maintained. So, in the time that in the short time that we had to declare for this race and to this point, I had relationships with different components of our community, Hispanic community, our African community, our white community, our Black community, and so in the other part, and even the Hindu community. I've reached out and spoke to all of these people to and establish relationships with them so that they feel comfortable talking to me and telling me what their concerns are, and I feel comfortable going to them and asking them what their concerns are or allowing them to voice their concerns to me. So I think having a diverse group and having relationships and people that you can go to and get feedback from those communities are really, really important. And so I think establishing relationships and just allowing them to have open dialogue is really important to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. All right, Candidate Hill, man, you made it through.
Rodney,
You-
listen, I really appreciate it, man. I tell you, listen, I'm a long-term law enforcement officer. I mean, I've spoken in front of people. This is the part of this job that you kind of have to get used to.
yeah.
I could have chose another elected office to run for, but I thought this one would allow me to reach more people and be more impactful to this community. Again, I started volunteering in this community in 1995, and I'm still volunteering right now. I'm coaching 8-year-old baseball. If you hear, right now, and so my kids are grown, but I'm coaching 8-year-old baseball. If you ever go to a Lithia Springs High School football game, I'm the PA announcer there. Been doing it for years. I did it at New Manchester, and I'm still doing it. I've coached, high school football at Lithia Springs. I've been a pillar in this community to build this community up. And I think those things are so critical. And no knock against any of my opponents. I think they're all great individuals. But I think a commissioner should be somebody who truly identifies with this community, not a transit, not somebody who's not, paying taxes, not somebody who's not been an adult long enough to understand how we feel. When I think about law enforcement and not to throw shade or anything, but I've heard some of my opponents talk about defunding the sheriff's office and some of the things they're doing, and that is the first step to ruining economic development. So those things really angers me when I hear it because I understand. I've seen what Clayton County used to be and what it is. No knock on Clayton, but I've seen what DeKalb County. I grew up in DeKalb County. I've seen what DeKalb County used to be and what it is. And so, my job is to protect Douglas County and keep Douglas County from becoming DeKalb County and their issues, or Clayton County and their issues. My job is to protect that. My vision, honestly, for Douglas County, I love Peachtree City and what it looks like and the business that goes on there. And I would love for Douglas County to emanate some of the things that Peachtree City has. I mean, and it starts with public safety. When people feel safe, they'll invest. And so that's really critical.
And that's exactly why when we were under the category of crisis management, I wanted to hone in on your relationships with the surrounding areas, because crises are not just natural or man-made, in the way we look at crises. You know, you're talking to two military veterans, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Navy, and I'm Army, and so
Wow.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and
Thank you for
so
service.
absolutely, man, appreciate it. And so we understand that there are a lot of other kinds of crises that are going on in the metro Atlanta area. And like you saying, what happened with DeKalb? What
Mm-hmm.
happened with Clayton
Mm-hmm.
and some of the other counties?
Mm-hmm.
To me, those are crises, right?
Absolutely.
And so and Kevin know as well, you deal with those crises, um economic crises, in the same, using some of the same techniques that you deal with, or some of the same pillars or techniques that you deal
Mm-hmm.
with, natural disasters, right? And
That's right.
so and I think that it'll definitely um help your situation, not your situation, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to echo that stuff. and
Yes,
and
sir.
and I think you're right on it, and I think you're doing an outstanding job. But tie those things in together, tie them in
Yes, sir.
together. Crises, that's
Absolutely.
what that's what you've done for 30 years, I have along.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Deal with crises, deal with things that are unexpected. But let me tell you, man, and also talking to other, like I said, the other surrounding counties, but the ones who are
Mm-hmm.
doing well too, the ones who went
Mm-hmm.
from from D to A, or from C to
Mm-hmm.
A, just as well as those
Mm-hmm.
ones that went from A
Mm-hmm.
to F or A to
We
D.
lost Rodney.
And so,
Mm-hmm.
because we have to, like you said, like you talked about a little bit earlier,
Mm-hmm.
you're not afraid to talk to anybody. You're not afraid to be
That's right.
wrong. You're not afraid to
That's right.
give credit where credit is due. So,
Absolutely.
so absolutely, man. Just hone it in, brother. Hone it in. You
I
know.
will. And let me say this: you being Army and Kevin being Navy, my daughter is an Air Force pilot, and so I'm privy. My father was in the Air Force, so I'm privy to the Air Force. I was actually going to sign up, but they went to lunch when I went to sign up, and I never went back. So,
Hey, that's the Air
so
Force, man.
and I
Yeah.
regret it.
Air
I
Force don't
regret it to
care.
this day. It showed up, man. It
You
showed
you
up.
going to you
But
going to recruit an officer, Air Force recruit, and say, "Hey, I want to sign up." He'd be like, "Okay, yeah, when I get back from lunch." Yeah,
exactly, and that's really what happened. So,
yeah, they don't
and
care.
and I regret it, but yeah, but so I
No,
really
you have
really
no regrets,
appreciate you
brother.
guys,
You
man.
you you have no regrets. You've been in law enforcement
I've had
for
a
a
great
long
career.
time. Yeah,
Lord knows,
absolutely.
it wasn't easy. And let me say this, not only is my daughter an Air Force pilot, but my son, who had a great football career, is now in law enforcement. And my youngest daughter is a doctor. And my youngest daughter's fiance is a Douglas County firefighter recruit. And my son's wife is a police officer. And so I'm a third generation police officer. Well, my son is a third generation police officer. So I say that to say that I'm my family, my entire family has always been servers, and that's who I am at my core. And my wife is a homicide victims advocate. She meets with families of homicides and makes sure that they have the services they need, or families of crime, and make sure they have the services they need to bury their loved ones. So my entire family of servers, and that's when you look at my campaign sign, it says "Serving for You." And that's who I am. I make no mistakes about it. I have the experience, I have the relationships, and so unlike my opponents, and I've been here 31 years, so I'm grounded here. I'm not going anywhere. So those things are really important to me, and I think hopefully they're important to our voters. And when they make that decision to vote, they won't just look at the fast talking or all the things that we are seeing. They'll look at the substance and look at the entire substance. So but I thank you guys, man, for this opportunity.
Absolutely,
It's
absolutely, Kelton, man.
Absolutely.
It's been good,
Our
and I want to
pleasure.
tell you, I want to say two things real quick, and I'm glad that we've had this time to be able to, and I've realized we're doing these interviews that, because Kevin and I, man, we can go deep into these questions, and
mm-hmm.
so
Oh yeah.
yeah, and so, but I realized that it might be a little bit better to speed it on so we
Mm-hmm.
can have an opportunity, kind of a get to know the candidate, from
Right.
the Black Man's Roundtable's perspective, because our audience is a little bit different from many of the other audiences that you're going to have an opportunity to speak to.
That's right. That's right.
It's a very not to say anybody else is not intelligent, but it's a very
Mm-hmm.
targeted kind of audience, and
Right.
we
Right.
target on purpose like that, right?
Right.
But
Right.
but speaking of which, like I said, I realized that it's best to, as far as being a moderator on here, to to kind of get that opportunity at the end for that get to know you part. So that's why I wanted to speed up things a little bit. But there's two things that I would tell you, man, that that gets under my skin. That's and that's when I hear like you said, people I don't care for our commissioners and some of our elected leaders to be or some of our elected officials, I'm sorry, to be so much looked at as leaders, right? And what I mean by that is, leading and legislating are different things, and so I like that you use the word servant, because if we're going to call our commissioners and some of the other elected officials leaders, those ones who are definitely in executive positions, our mayors and governors and all those kind of things, they are absolutely leaders by default, whether they want to be or not. But
That's right.
I think we should say servant leaders, just that key word that you've been using. So that's one of the things. It's just one of those things that with more than 21 years in the Army, and a few combat tours, I'm very particular about that word leader, and I think that it is something that is kind of misused a little bit, or overused. Let me put it that way.
Overused.
And it's definitely overused, like hero. You know what I'm saying? But it's definitely overused, and I think that when we put some people in position and we just crown them as leaders, then we're very disappointed when they don't do leader type stuff. But servant leader, and the other thing is right in your field as well. And I'll let Kevin close out his comments, which is, I hear people, there's over 19,000, almost 20,000 police departments in the United States, right? Individual police departments, if not more, but you're more of an expert on that than I could ever be. But you know, we always need to remember, in my opinion, that I believe on all 19,000 plus police department cars and that motto is not to protect and serve. It is to serve and protect. Again, serve. I've never seen protect come before serve. I haven't seen all 19,000, but I hear citizens all the time say, well, their job is to protect and serve. No, it's to serve and protect. Help that guy with that tire, man.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Help him change the tire on the car, So anyway, I just want to get it off my chest, because I'm talking to, a potential commissioner who has, a background, in being, a real leader, but also, with the background in law enforcement. Kevin, I've said enough, man. I'll probably say something in a minute to get myself in trouble.
No, I think that you kind of wrapped it up, but I'd just like to summarize by saying, Mr. Kelton, it was my pleasure getting to meet you, sir. I'm very impressed with your history, with your pedigree, um, and I think you're going to make a good commissioner if you're so elected. And I welcome the opportunity to have a chance to dialogue with you for a little bit.
Amen. I listen again. I appreciate both of you guys. You guys made this so much easier than I've had in the past. I love talking to you guys. Listen, win, lose, or draw, I will be a part of what you're doing, I'm just excited about the opportunity to really get to meet you guys and be a part of this. So, God willing, I'll be a commissioner, and we can do even more of this. And this is a component. This is a component of being able to talk to our constituents. So if I'm elected commissioner, or when I'm elected commissioner, we certainly will sit down and have these kinds of talks all the time, Kevin and Rodney.
Gotcha. I think we lost Rodney.
Okay, gentlemen, I don't know what just happened. We had a little issue, but I think we're all back on. So
Rodney,
with that,
are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you guys hear me, gentlemen? Can you hear me?
I think we lost. He's probably gonna come on in a second.
Okay.
Gentlemen, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
So I guess if he's still uploading, so I think.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. telling me I have no idea what's going on. But at any rate, man, just go ahead on and close it out, Kevin.
Okay.
And yeah, just close it out. And then once I hear you, I can hear and see you guys, but you can't hear me.
Okay. So I'm gonna tell Kelton to close out.
Yeah. Remind Kelton to put out, how people can donate, how people can reach him,
Okay.
and yeah, and then that's it, man. We just close it out. I don't know what's
Okay.
happening.
Kelton, we're gonna give you the last couple minutes to summarize, let people know how they can reach you, how they can donate, and so forth.
Okay, so obviously, you can reach me on my webpage, which is Kelton for DCCommissioner.com. You can reach me there. You can donate there. You can give me some suggestions. My phone numbers. You can reach me on Facebook as well as Instagram, and my contact information is there. Should you want to call me or share some things with me, so that's that.
Okay. Any last plug for why you should be commissioner?
My last plug is, again, I'm here 31 years. It's not that I've been in this county for 4 years or I'm, living, I've been a 31-year tax-paying citizen here in Douglas County. I've watched this county change a number of different times. I have a relationship with this community. I know this community. I know it very well. They know me. And so I think a commissioner should be somebody who resonates with this community and who has a relationship with this community and who has the intellect to do the things that needs to be done and who have the relationship with our buffer zones and people around us so that we can get things done. And I promise you, if you elect me, I will get your business done. I will get your business done. And I will make sure that Douglas County is a safe place to raise your children, and safety being number one will generate economic and community development. So thank you so much, guys, for having me. I look forward to being your commissioner, and I look forward to serving the citizens of Douglas County. And on March 12th, please vote for Kelton Hill for commissioner of District 2.
Thank you very much, Kelton. That'll be the conclusion of our podcast, and have a good night, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you so
All right.
much.
All right.
Don't forget to check us out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do you have show ideas or want to be on the show? Shoot us an email at blackmansroundtable@gmail.com. And please follow us on Facebook.
1,